The line clicked and her laugh slipped through, bright and careless, like a coin tossed into a well that wasn't mine. "I'm divorcing you," Lena said, "and I've already sold the beach house. Drew and I are starting over." I looked past the hotel glass at Brussels. The roof's wet and dark as leather. I kept my voice level. "I understand. My name is Martin Hale. 52. 23 years of negotiating other people's square footage and fine print from a desk in Jacksonville. I made a life out of pausing before I speak, out of tracing margins with a finger no one sees. On the table, the contract I'd been shepherding for a warehouse west of the canal gleamed with rainlight. I didn't slam anything. Didn't ask why. I asked one question. "When did you close?" She sounded almost bored. "Yesterday. Buyer moves in next week. You can do the Marriott like you always do." I heard the little smile in her words and pictured the black Mercedes I hadn't met yet. Drew Carver, 35, shoulders first, then opinions. The man who once asked me what my watch cost, as if numbers were a party trick. We hung up. The window fogged at the edges. Below, umbrellas opened in unison, a soft choreography of strangers avoiding the same weather. I let the quiet settle. There's a moment in every negotiation when anger wants the pen. I never let it hold the pen. I opened my laptop, typed with the same patient rhythm I use on deeds and leases. Subject: urgent, fraudulent property sale attempt. 2 recipients: Camille Porter, who has read my titles like poems for 10 years. Samuel Ortiz, who taught me early that a clear paragraph is a form of mercy. I attached nothing. I promised details in an hour. I pressed send. I sat with the city for a while, the roofs, the tram bell, the steam from a paper cup going nowhere. 15 years with Lena, and she still thought I was a man who reacted. She forgot what I do for a living. In property, you learn the difference between ownership and intention. One carries weight in a courthouse. The other evaporates in air conditioning. I called Samuel from the marble steps of the Grand Place. Pigeons lifted. Tourists lifted their phones. I explained, clean as a ledger, the claim, the timing, the trainer, the house. He didn't hesitate. "She can't sell what she doesn't own," he said. Calm, like rain. "We'll flag the record. Notify title. The buyers have no claim. Fraud is a word we don't want, but it exists." I told him I understood, that I didn't want her in trouble, that I wanted the truth to be heavier than the story. When we hung up, I walked the square as if measuring a room. Columns, sight lines, exits, the old way I calculate leverage. No fury, just a steady pulse and a simple note inside my chest. Signatures outlast apologies. She thought I'd roll. She forgot I read everything. I met Lena at a real estate conference in Orlando, where the carpet was too soft and the coffee too proud of itself. She wore a navy suit and spoke like she'd already rehearsed the closing. We traded notes during a panel on unlocking hidden value, which is the industry's way of saying look harder. She laughed at my line about how contracts breathe if you listen. A year later, we were standing in a courthouse, just her sister and my brother, signing a thin stack of papers that felt heavier than the room. No string quartet, no doves. A clerk who wished us luck like a weather report. We bought the Amelia Island place 3 years after that. For bedrooms, 3 baths, cedar that needed love, a deck that wrapped the house like a quiet arm. The ocean had a way of speaking without moving its mouth. Price: $1.2 million. It took most of what I'd saved and a mortgage that hummed at the edge of sleep. Weekends, I learned the stubbornness of salt. I replaced boards, sanded rails, coaxed a reluctant kitchen into something honest. Lena curated the inside world. Linen curtains, the light just so, the kind of glasses that make even water dress up. We made it work. Or I believed we did. My job took me to places that taste different. Paris butter, Barcelona smoke, Tokyo steel and citrus. Sometimes she came. Sometimes she didn't. She left little notes in my luggage. A grocery list of affection. Over time, the notes turned into emojis, then into silence with good grammar. Have a good meeting. Safe flight. It's a modern way to say I'm far. The gym happened almost 2 years ago. 5 days a week. Early. A new routine that gave her a second language. A vocabulary of macros, tempo, split days. Drew appeared inside that new language like a verb you never learned in school. Former college athlete. Trainer. The kind of man who holds mirrors for a living. At first I nodded along, admired her discipline, paid the membership like any other bill. Then dinners on statements I couldn't place, spa weekends with friends who were always, you wouldn't know them. I didn't hire anyone, didn't scroll or phone. I kept notes in my head the way I do on site visits. Hairline cracks, soft spots in the subfloor, a door that scrapes only when it's humid. 11 months before Brussels, I asked Samuel to draw up a living trust for the beach house. We tucked it among refinancing papers for a Tampa investment. The stack was thick, the kind that turns patience into policy. Lena signed where the flags told her to sign. She was texting a contractor about sconces. I said, "This protects us," which was true in the way umbrellas are true. They keep the person holding them dry. I did not gloat. I filed the deed. I let the ocean keep talking. And I watched the messages between us grow tidy and brief, the way people get right before they leave. I left the hotel to the soft percussion of rain and found a cafe that smelled like roasted almonds and old wood. The barista slid a cup toward me without ceremony. I took a stool by the window and let the glass cool my forearms. I wasn't angry. Anger is noisy and blind. I needed quiet and sight. I opened my notebook, paper, not screen, and wrote 3 lines the way I would map a site. Title, notice, timing. Then below it, a sentence I've taught junior brokers for years. Signatures outlast intentions. Samuel called back before the coffee cooled. Recorder's office will flag anything touching the parcel, he said. I've emailed the usual title shops. If a deed blinks in Duval or Nassau, I'll see it. We'll add a courtesy letter to the buyer's agent. No threats, just facts. His voice had the weight I borrow when mine might waver. You fly home, he added. We'll hold the ground. I thanked him and stayed a minute longer, watching umbrellas bloom and close of the door, same rhythm as negotiation. People step out, step back, change minds, return. There's a way grief tries to rent your attention by the hour. I didn't sign that lease. I booked the earliest flight to Jacksonville, sent a single line to my client about a family emergency, and forwarded Camille a scan of the trust deed with the trustee page circled. I packed slowly, touching each object the way you do when you realize everything you own is either ballast or burden. The warehouse file, my passport, the steel pen Lena once gave me for a promotion back when we had weight. On the plane, I didn't choose a movie. I watched the wing cut pale sky and thought about the difference between fairness and clarity. Fairness is a debate. Clarity is a document. I pictured the deck back home, the scars where I'd pulled out corroded screws one by one, how the board finally lifts only when you apply steady pressure in the right direction. Marriage is a structure. Ours had been creaking for a while. I hadn't wanted demolition. I wanted to brace the frame. But bracing only works if both hands press. 9 hours is a long time to sit with your own weather. I made a list in the small light. Call bank. Freeze transfers. Cancel recurring charges to Elite. Update HR. Insurance. Keys. Security. Speak plainly. Avoid theater. Offer a path that isn't a cliff. I slept for 20 minutes and dreamed of a tide chart. Black lines rising and falling, predictably faithful to the moon. When wheels kissed runway, it was late Florida afternoon, the kind that makes even the rental car lot look cinematic. I drove out without turning on the radio. No announcements, no warnings, just a lane and a direction. I didn't text Lena. I didn't prepare speeches. I had a deed, a plan, and a promise to myself. Enforce the facts, not the feelings. The rest would settle like silt after a storm. The ocean was bright as a blade when I turned onto our street. Saturday noon, heat hieroglyphs rising off the asphalt. A black Mercedes sat where my truck usually breathed salt. I let the engine idle until the air in my chest matched the air in the car. Then I killed it, took the briefcase, and walked up the path we'd edged with sea oats and thrift. The door was unlocked. Inside, laughter carried from the kitchen, an easy, new house sound that didn't belong to us. I left my suitcase by the coat tree. Drew's voice came first, confident, realtor slick. Take this wall down, and the whole sightline opens. Buyers love a straight shot to the view. Lena answered with that bright, efficient tone she uses when she's already decided. I stepped into the doorway. She wore a sundress I didn't recognize, a glass of champagne tilted at rest in her hand. Drew had an arm slung around her waist, and a tablet open to some mock-ups that thought they understood our house. "Martin," she said, recovering quickly, like a host surprised by an early guest. "I thought Monday." Clearly. I set the briefcase on the island. Drew's arm retreated to his side, palms open, the universal sign for harmless. I should go, he offered. I'd prefer you stay, I said. This involves you. Lena placed the glass down without looking at me. We don't need to make a scene. I told you. You told me you sold a house you don't own. I opened the case, the little sound of latches like a metronome. I laid the trust deed flat, anchor in the storm. 11 months ago, this property transferred to the Martin Hale Living Trust. I am the sole trustee. You signed. Among the Tampa Refi papers, remember? She reached for the document, as if it might burn, less if she moved quickly. Her eyes scanned, hungry for a loophole that wasn't there. You tricked me. No, I said. I labeled every tab. You chose not to read them. That isn't trickery. It's negligence. I kept my tone soft, the way you talk to a skittish horse, or a room full of investors who need facts more than drama. Any sale you've attempted is void. The recorder's office is flagged. Title's been notified. The buyers have no claim. Drew shifted his weight. The gym body looked smaller under fluorescent kitchen light. She said it was final. His voice had an echo of a boy who trusted a game he didn't know the rules for. It isn't, I said, and there's more at stake than losing face. Fraud is not a decorative word. He flinched at that. I'll wait in the car, he murmured, and left the room with the brittle speed of someone used to running toward exits. When we were alone, Lena's anger came in like a gust through a cracked window. You're controlling. You hid this from me. I protected the house. I invited you to read. You chose speed over certainty. I closed the deed with 2 fingers. Here's what happens next. I'm staying in a hotel tonight, so you can collect what you need. Monday I'll be back. The house isn't moving. Neither are its walls. She lifted the champagne and swallowed too fast. You won't get away with this. There's nothing to get away with. I picked up the briefcase. There's only the record and what it says. Talk to your lawyer. Truly. You'll want company for the facts. On the porch the air smelled like cut limes and low tide. I paused at the railing we had sanded together, watched a pelican trace a clean line over the water. Diffusing isn't surrender. It's choosing the hour and the ground. I walked to the car and left the house to its own steady breathing. Samuel's office felt like Sunday, quiet halls, lights on only where needed, a bowl of hard candy no one likes but everyone takes. He'd rolled his sleeves and drawn the blinds halfway, the light cut into careful rectangles across his desk. There's more, he said before I sat. No preface, no throat clearing. He slid a folder toward me like a slow verdict. Bank statements first. Columns that looked harmless until you watched the pattern. Transfers small, then larger. Round numbers that suggest planning, not panic. A separate account in Lena's name. $170,000 walking away on clean legs. Most of our liquid safety set on a different shelf, just out of reach of the hand that earned it. I felt the air thin, the way it does when you climb stairs too fast. Not rage. A vacancy. How easily numbers can be moved when no one is looking at the same page. Samuel didn't fill the silence. He placed the next piece on top of the first. A preliminary lease in Savannah. Retail frontage on a street with foot traffic and late light. Tenant names. Lena Cross and Drew Carver. A fitness boutique. Boutique, the word that makes sweat decorative. Signed 3 months ago, when I thought we were only tired and not gone. I traced the signatures with my eyes and remembered the courthouse clerk who wished us luck like weather. The forecast had been hiding in the margins for a while. And this, Samuel said, as if he were adding a final hinge to a door we already knew would swing. Articles of organization for a shell entity that had offered on the beach house. Manager, Ryan Carver, Drew's brother. The plan was neat enough to be taught. Acquire below market through a void sale. Wait for the outcry. Negotiate with a man you think will fold. Then flip and celebrate your cleverness. It wasn't personal to them. It was arithmetic. But it landed in my chest like a stone. Something shifted inside me then. The angle of the room changed by a degree only I could feel. Up until that desk, I've been playing defense, sandbags, tarps, the quiet labor of keeping the water out. Now a colder clarity arrived. Not revenge. Not spectacle. Accountability. I thought about the young associates I trained to believe gotcha is a strategy. It isn't. The real move is to show the ledger and let silence do the counting. What are my options? I asked. Strong, he said. Trust holds the house. We freeze what can be frozen. Emergency motion to bar any transfers. As for the money already taken, Florida's equitable distribution muddies it, but the fraud sharpens the picture. We propose terms that return most of it and close the door without a siren. He slid a draft settlement across the desk. Lena returns 60% of the siphoned funds, relinquishes all claim to trust properties, and I waive interest in her new venture and any criminal referral. Fair but firm. A bridge, not a cliff. I read it twice, the way I read load-bearing language. Send it, I said, and prepare for court. Samuel nodded, already dialing. Outside, Sunday held its breath. Inside, the room felt level again. Monday began before the sun. I woke in the hotel to the thin hum of the air unit and the kind of dark that asks for a decision. I made coffee from a machine that pretends, showered, and watched the first line of light open along the river like someone unzipping a coat. Then I drove downtown, the streets empty in that gentle way when a city is still deciding what it will be today. Samuel had already filed a petition, divorce first, emergency motion alongside it, a clean pair of documents that said, nothing moves until we all agree what is ours. He forwarded the stamped copies to my phone with a note as spare as a blueprint. Recorder notified. Title shops looped. Clerk set for 10 a.m. I parked, breathed against the wheel for a count of 5, then walked into the courthouse, as if entering a building I'd helped design. Familiar floors. Fluorescent quiet. A small, steady gravity. The judge signed the temporary injunction before the hour turned. The language was dry by design. No adjectives, only verbs that hold. Prohibit. Restrain. Maintain. It felt like sliding a beam under a sagging span. Nothing dramatic. Just support where the weight is. From there, I moved in a straight line. First Coast Bank, Thomas Pike in a tie the color of slate. We shook hands like men who remember the small bet they won together years ago. In less than an hour, we separated accounts, froze transfers where the policy allowed, replaced cards that carried too many stories. Anything else I can do? He asked. One more favor, I said. Tell me when Elite Fitness hits next. He checked. Tomorrow. 300. 18 months running. I nodded. Cancel it. Keep utilities for the beach house. Everything else goes quiet. He printed confirmations like receipts from a past life. I drove to the office, told HR what needed telling, adjusted beneficiaries and addresses, called the insurance agent who knows me by the way I clear my throat. Each change felt like loosening a knot I tied myself. Practical mercy. No speeches. No apologies to empty rooms. Sometime afternoon, my phone lit with Lena's number and then settled into voicemail. A minute later, a text from an unknown line. Counsel for Ms. Cross. Your trust trick won't survive scrutiny. House is joint property. See you in court. I sent the message to Samuel. He replied with a voice memo, his calm threaded through the static. Documentation is clean. Chain of title is a straight line. Community property doesn't apply here. Florida's equitable distribution does, and the deed predates separation. Let bluster be bluster. I type back, send the offer. Prepare exhibits as if we'll use them. At 2, I returned to the beach house. I stood in the foyer a long beat, listening to the old boards tell me where they'd like to be reinforced. The locks were new now. The alarm chirped recognition. I walked room to room, touching thresholds, naming what would stay. A house is a ledger of choices. So is a marriage. I couldn't rewrite either, but I could balance the accounts, close what needed closing, and keep what still carried my name. Outside, the tide was on its way in. I let that be my signal. Hold the line. Let the water come. Let it stop where it should. By mid-afternoon, the house sounded hollow, like a shell you lift to your ear to hear something that isn't there. I'd reprogrammed the alarm at lunch, but the lock cylinders were still original. I hadn't called the locksmith yet. The Mercedes was in the drive, sun striking its hood hard enough to make the air quiver. Inside, a zipper rasped, fast and nervous. I followed the sound to the living room. Drew was crouched by the coffee table, stuffing clothes into a duffel the color of wet asphalt. He looked up with that reflexive smile people wear when they're not sure which version of themselves you've met. I was just grabbing my things, he said. The duffel swallowed a pair of shoes, a charger, a protein shaker. His hands were too busy to be calm. Take your time, I said. Where's Lena? At her sister's. He didn't hold my eyes. She's upset. Says you're trying to ruin her. I almost laughed, small, without joy. Is that the story now? That I ruined what she tried to sell? He shifted, the bag thumping his knee. She said you kept her trapped here while you traveled. Said you controlled the money. And the boutique lease in Savannah. I asked, gentle as weather. Signed 3 months ago. Her name and yours. What did I control there? A flinch, then a swallow. He wasn't a villain, just a man who thought momentum equals wisdom. We had a plan, he said softly, as if naming it would make it less cheap. You did, I agreed. Here's mine. There's a settlement offer at Samuel Ortiz's office. 48 hours to accept. She returns most of what she siphoned, relinquishes all claim to trust properties. I waive any claim to your new venture and any referral to the state attorney. Clean break. He stared at the floor. And if she says no, then we let the record speak where it's trained to speak. I'll let the next word sit between us like a level on a board. Also, tell Ryan Carver to withdraw his offer on this house by close of business today. If he wants to avoid being named as a co-conspirator, this is the hour. His mouth opened, then closed. The duffel zipper found its end with a last, desperate sound. I'll call him. He moved toward the hall. I stepped aside. Drew, I said, and he paused. Whatever you think of me, read what you sign. It's cheaper than regret. He nodded, a quick, embarrassed tilt, and was gone. When the door latched, the house exhaled. I phoned the locksmith and scheduled the cylinder swap for evening. I ordered a new security package, cameras with a clean, silent gaze, and changed every password that carried a ghost of us. While the sun slid down, I walked the perimeter, making a list on a scrap of envelope. Pry bar scuffs on the garage jamb, rust on the south deck screws, hairline crack under the guest bath window. Practical notes, a language I trust. After dark, I ate takeout from the seafood place we used to favor. Shrimp still hot, lemon blunt and bright. I sat on the wraparound and watched the tide lift its quiet shoulders. The locksmith's van pulled away around 9. The new keys were cold and precise in my palm. Across the water, a freighter stitched a patient line of light toward the horizon. I let the night move the way water does, forward, indifferent, steady. Somewhere a phone was ringing in someone else's kitchen. Here, the only sound was the surf and a hinge settling true. My phone buzzed once. Samuel, Ryan rescinded. I texted back a single word. Copy. I stayed on the deck until the stars felt less like holes and more like nails holding the sky in place. Then I locked the door, my door, and went to bed. 3 weeks later, the air in Samuel's conference room felt like paper, thin, flat, waiting for ink. The blinds were drawn to a pale hush, the kind of light that makes everything look slightly truer. A tray of water glasses sweated quietly along the edge of the credenza, as if they were nervous too. I sat across from Lena. She'd chosen a severe blazer and a lipstick the color of certainty. Her lawyer was young and ambitious, the sort who confuses volume with ballast. He kept straightening a stack of legal pads, as if order could be willed from stationery. We exchanged the small nod people use when there's nothing small left to say. No handshakes. Samuel took his seat, sleeves rolled, eyes steady. He didn't rehearse a speech. He pushed 3 documents to the center of the table, each aligned with the care he gives to sentences. Before we begin, he said, voice smooth as a level finding center, we'll mark these for the record. First, the trust deed, page flag where Lena's signature tilted into the margin like a weather vane on a windy day. Second, bank records charting the $170,000 migration, dates, amounts, account numbers set out like footprints in damp sand. Third, an affidavit with a notary's stamp, Ryan Carver's admission that the shell company offering on the house was his, that its purpose was a quiet flip after a void sale. The young lawyer read quickly, then again, slower. I watched the muscle in his jaw learn restraint. He leaned to whisper to Lena, something careful, something shorter than comfort. She kept her face the way you keep a door closed when a storm taps at it. Stern, hands on the knob, pretending the glass isn't rattling. We're prepared to settle, he announced, but it sounded like a question that knew its answer. Samuel nodded once, as if this were the next step on a staircase we'd all seen. Our terms are as stated, Samuel said. Ms. Cross returns $100,000 today and provides a plan for the balance per schedule. She fully relinquishes any claim to the beach house and to all properties held in the Martin Hale Living Trust. Mr. Hale waives any claim to Ms. Cross's Savannah business and agrees not to pursue criminal referral based on the attempted sale and associated misappropriations. Each party bears their own fees. Final. Clean. Lena spoke for the first time, her voice covered in glass. And if I refuse? Samuel set his pen down, gentle. Then the affidavit, the deed, and the statements go to the state attorney. We will request injunctive relief and pursue remedies available in fraud exceeding $100,000. We prefer not to. The room went quiet the way rooms do when the truth takes a chair. Her lawyer asked for a private moment. They stepped out. I looked at the empty hallway through the glass and thought of tide lines, how the ocean shows you, without apology, where it has been. 17 minutes later they returned. Lena didn't look at me. We accept, her lawyer said. Signatures came next, swift, practiced, final. I wrote my name the way I have on 1,000 closings, each letter a plank set into place. No gloating, no victory dance, just the clean click of a clasp when a case closes around what belongs inside. When it was done, Samuel slid copies into neat folders. The room exhaled. Outside, traffic stitched its patient thread through downtown. I stood, thanked them, and left without turning back. Some endings deserve silence, as their only witness. 6 months is enough time for a house to learn your footsteps again. Morning finds me on the deck with a mug that fits my hand like a good claws. The siding no longer sighs at every gust. We skin the place in something the ocean respects. Hurricane windows, too, glass that listens without breaking. The kitchen wears its new, quiet well, matte cabinets, hardware that doesn't announce itself, a counter where knives finally have a home. I kept the old wooden spoon we bought at a roadside stand our first spring here. It stirs differently, but it still stirs. I've learned the tide schedule better than I used to. It comforts me, the math of it. Moon, pull, reach, return. On good days I walk at dawn and let the pelicans draw straight lines I can't draw myself. The rooms have lost the echo they had when lawyers were saying our names. They hold a softer sound now. Coffee pouring, a book closing, the light footfall of a neighbor's cat who believes any sunlit square is public domain. News arrives the way it always does in small towns with long beaches, sideways, polite, threaded through other topics. A friend mentions, casually, that the Savannah studio opened on a smaller footprint than planned. Then later, another friend says the classes aren't full, the lease is heavy, the math is stubborn. I don't celebrate. I remember the heat of that kitchen day and how grief looks for fuel. I won't feed it. Choices do their own teaching. The market is impartial. So is time. When the settlement wired in, I didn't buy anything that shines. I moved the funds into a low-story office building off Laura Street, brick and honest, tenants who pay on the first and say hello in the stairwell. The lease is stacked neatly in a red file I can reach without standing. It isn't glamorous, but neither is staying standing when the wind picks up. Steady is its own kind of beauty. Some evenings I cook the simple things my schedule used to complicate. Shrimp with garlic, tomatoes softened in olive oil, a salad that tastes better than it looks. I eat at the island and read one chapter of whatever novel I promised myself I'd get to when life quieted. The quiet, it turns out, has to be built like anything else. Camille called last week. Just checking on your fortress, she said, and I pictured her desk full of tabs and straight edges. Better every day, I told her. She had a line on a new property. Modest square footage, solid tenant mix, a trust structure that would make the future feel less breakable. Send it, I said, and meant it. Sometimes I stand at the railing and let the salt rise to meet me. The house is wood, glass, screws that finally learn to hold. It is also a sentence I kept for myself. I will read what matters. I will sign only what I mean. That is enough. More than enough. Some days. The waves don't care about my paperwork, and maybe that's the point. They arrive. They recede. They keep their word to the shore. At first light, the horizon is a graphite line, the ocean a page not yet written on. I bring coffee to the rail and let the steam meet the salt. Pelicans skim like underlined sentences. A shrimp boat hums somewhere to the south, steady as a generator. I breathe with it. There's relief in how the morning ignores us. Our vows, our filings, our careful words. I used to think control was what kept a house standing. Now I think it's attention. Control tries to hold. Attention listens, embraces. I reread the trust deed last night. Not because I doubted it, but because documents are a way I talk to myself when feelings are louder than facts. The language is calm. It names the property, the trustee, the duties. It never uses the word love. Contracts rarely do, but they ask for something like it. Patience, clarity, a promise to act as if tomorrow will arrive and find you honorable. Maybe that's what I forgot to ask for at home. Or maybe I asked and the question didn't fit the room anymore. Either way, the paper held when people didn't. The phone stays inside. The world can wait. I walk the deck boards I've replaced with my own hands. Each screw a small decision to stay. The new windows carry a different quiet, almost a hum. I imagine storms not as enemies, but as audits. What have you fastened? What did you only intend to? The metaphor is tired, and still it's true. What we secure ahead of weather saves us from making speeches in the rain. Across the rail, a fisherman casts into the morning, like signing his name on the day. I remember my first training sessions years ago, the way I told new negotiators to read twice and speak once, to love footnotes and margins, to assume nothing is simple just because it is short. I believe that more than ever, signatures outlast intentions. So do small habits, a respectful email, the honest price, the boundary you keep even when someone calls you cruel for keeping it. I'm not interested in revenge. The ocean proves every hour that return is not the same as payback. It moves according to something larger than insult. If there's a philosophy here, it's plain: build what you can live inside of, protect what cannot be replaced. Don't mistake momentum for meaning. Lena is elsewhere now, choosing her light, her mirrors, her music. I wish her less noise than we made at the end. The sun lifts and the water changes color, slate to blue, then something without a name. I finish the coffee and bring the mug to the sink. The house is wood and glass and plans, but also a promise I kept to myself when promises to someone else failed. It is not everything. It is enough. I lock the door out of habit, then unlock it again because the day is fair. Papers in the drawer, keys in the bowl, work waiting. The tide will reach its mark. Keep it for a while, then let go. That is the lesson I can live with.